Hey team, Jason Klum here. Welcome to Everyday Nutrition, your 4-week crash course in eating smarter without overthinking every bite. So, a little bit about myself. So, I'm the wellness coordinator here. I've done diets before. I've been able to actually drop 60 pounds. I've done ultra running, death races, and I've done bodybuilding competitions. And as far as diets, I've tried it all. I've done keto, I've done vegan, I've done carb cycling, I've done carnivore. So I've done all these diets, so you don't have to try them. I can tell you the results from them. And my biggest passion is translating nutrition science into real world tactics and, getting cutting through all the pseudoscience and all the fads and everything and giving you the truth. And I promise no fads, no fluff, just practical strategies. So the way this is going to work, each video, I'm going to try to make this video about 14 minutes long. I'm just going to cover the highlights. I'm going to attach the presentation to the email. So if you want to dive deeper into any of the topics, please feel free. But I just want to give you some practical advice for each thing. We have 4 weeks here. This week, we're just going to talk about the basics. I'm going to tell you now, this is probably the least exciting and the most boring of the weeks. I'm going to try to change that. However, all we're doing is talking about the fundamentals. And in the next few weeks, we get into labels, which is pretty good because there's lots of different ways to find out all the tricks that vendors try to use. Then we got smart shopping, which is going to talk about eating out, grocery shopping, an awesome presentation there. And then at the very end, we're going to tie it all together with strategies on meal planning and prep for busy lifestyles. So essentially, we all know food is fuel. We need proper fuel. We all know that we feel better with good food. It supports our hormones, our brain health. We get the gist. So there's macronutrients and micronutrients. Your macronutrients are your carbs, your fats, and your protein, and your micronutrients are your vitamins, minerals. So we're going to kind of break that down a little bit later. We're going to just talk about the macros first. First one we're talking about is fats. We need fats for hormones, brain focus, long-lasting fullness. You want to make a majority of your diet from monosaturated fats, which are your plants, like your avocado, and then you want to have the polyunsaturated fats where you're going to get your omega-3s, which is going to be your fatty fish, things like salmon, tuna, sardines, things like that. Our brain is 60% fat, so give it premium fuel. We want to watch out for things like deep fried foods, things that have a lot of saturated fats like your deep fried foods and in your shelf stable foods. And the reason why you want to watch out for your shelf stable stuff is it has trans fat, and you really want to try to avoid trans fat. Just some myths: eating fat makes you fat. Nope, it's calories in, calories out. If you ate nothing but Dunkin' Donuts, as long as you were under the energy calories that you need, you would lose weight. There's actually been a study on a gentleman who ate nothing but Twinkies and he lost weight. All his morbid or all his chronic symptoms were good. Like, for instance, he reduced his chance of heart disease, his blood pressure went down. So again, it's calories in, calories out. Of course, you're not going to feel that great eating just donuts, but eating fat does not make you fat. Myth 2, low fat foods are always better. So think about low fat foods. If they've taken a food that typically has a lot of fat, like mayonnaise and ranch dressing, and then they reduce the fat, they replace that with sugar. So just be aware of that. Yes, it is less calories. I think it has a very different taste, one, but two, they're adding more sugar to make up for the reduced fats. And saturated fat is always bad? Nope, it's all about moderation. If you want to eat one one thing with saturated fat a day, that more power to you. It's all about moderation. I totally believe in the 80-20 rule. Try to keep 80% of your meals healthy, and then 20, whatever. But one great source of fat that is a saturated source would be your eggs. Eggs are pretty much the building blocks of a chicken, so it has a lot of micronutrients, macronutrients, a lot of things that can really help you. So eggs are a great thing. I would suggest 2 eggs would be about right, unless you're dealing with too much cholesterol. Carbs are not the enemy. So there's 2 different carbs. There's simple carbs, there's your candies, your sodas, your white breads, and then there's your complex carbs, your oats, sweet potatoes, beans. There's a lot more information I could share about this, but I'm just going to keep it simple, is that complex carbs are going to give you more energy longer. So if you're going to start your day with oatmeal versus donuts, you are going to have a lot more sustained energy. You're going to feel better and not as hungry with the oatmeal. Fiber is the MVP. Keeps you full, feeds your gut bacteria, and flattens sugar spikes. One hack is when you're eating your fruits, that if you can, leave the peel on it, a great fiber win. A little bit more about fiber. So what fiber does, it sweeps the gut, slows sugar spikes, and feeds good bacteria. We just talked about that. A quick swap is so for instance, if you had apple juice versus apples, it's always the better choice to eat the apples, because when you make the juice, you're removing all the fiber and all you're doing is condensing the sugar. Like for instance, the 8 ounces of apple juice would be the equivalent of 3 to 4 apples, the sugar in 3 to 4 apples, but none of the fiber. So what could you do? You could easily drink 8 ounces of apple juice. However, it'd be difficult to eat 3 or 4 apples at one time. And that's because of all the additional fiber and macronutrients. So if you can get away from your juices, please do. Just to give you another tip, as far as fiber goes, women should get 25 grams, men 30. If you change one thing in your diet and you focused on getting 25 grams of fiber a day, you would feel 1,000 times better. You would see a world of difference in 1 month doing that. And just a quick bite, fiber definitely reduces cravings for carbs and makes any kind of sustainable diet easier because you feel full longer. All right, protein. So why it matters. So protein is important because it builds and repairs muscles. It supports immune health. How much protein do you need? 20 to 30 grams per meal is great. How would you look at that? That would be, we're going to look at the next page for that. Aim for a palm-sized portion each meal, and then that's all you need. So a palm-sized portion of protein for each meal. Some sources of protein would be your chicken, Greek yogurt, eggs, cottage cheese. Protein powder is actually a really good source of protein. It comes from whey protein typically, which is a great pure source of protein. So if you need to add some more protein to your diet, protein shakes are a definite option. However, they're not going to have as much satiety effect as things like chicken, so just be aware of that. And your body can only absorb about 20 to 30 grams of protein at a time, so spacing it out helps a whole lot. So the idea is just aim for that palm-sized portion with each meal, and you should be good to go with protein. Real quick, micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, water, the MVP for energy, digestion, and staying sharp, and just make sure your plate is super colorful. Small changes like adding spinach, eggs, or swapping soda for water go a long way. Again, just a variety of different colors, and you should get all the micronutrients you need. One thing I want to talk real quick about multivitamins. Multivitamins are not regulated by the FDA since they're a supplement, so you really don't know if what the packaging says is what's in it based by the quantity it says it has. So unless you're deficient in a certain kind of vitamin or mineral, I would suggest just trying to get that through your diet. And if you are going to do a multivitamin, make sure that you check that it has been tested and what it says is in it is actually what's in it. Even if you have to pay a little more, it's worth it to get what you're trying to achieve with it. Real quick, cutting on trends and fads. Keto and carnivore are very extreme. Obviously, we know that keto is a very low carb diet. Typically, sometimes it could be 10% of your diet coming from carbs. Carnivore is no carbs. Both are sustainable over long term physically. However, they are extreme and not something I recommend for a long time. If you have any other questions about keto or carnivore, want to try any of them, please post in the comments. I've done both, and I definitely have experience to share about them. Intermittent fasting, I love intermittent fasting. I usually have an 8 to 6 hour eating window. The reason I do this is because I'm not snacking the other time. I don't have to think about food the other time, and also I like to have larger meals. So if I only have a 6 to 8 hour window, I can do 3 larger meals within that, and I feel very full. Whole30, these diets really focus on whole foods. They're very restrictive. I've done both. I don't really recommend them. They're really, if weight loss is your goal, they're really not great for that, and it's just too severe in my opinion. Now, here's the gold standard, the Mediterranean. This by far is my favorite out of all diets. If you look at blue zones and what a blue zone is, it's a place in the world where people live there, typically live over 100 years old. All of their diets are Mediterranean, and Mediterranean diet is a lot of vegetables, leafy greens, healthy fats, your salmon, a lot of nuts and berries. If you were going to have one eating style to live the rest of your life with for the most optimum longevity, it would be Mediterranean, in my opinion. Plant-based is also good. The only problem I see with plant-based is you have to be very aware of what you're getting to make sure you're getting all the nutrients that you need, since you don't have very many options. Kind of the same thing with the keto and carnivore. And really, every diet has pros and cons. The best one is the one you can stick to. And the reason why all these diets work, any kind of diet works, because it's a calorie restriction. And these are just different ways to do calorie restrictions, except the Whole30 and Paleo Mediterranean, those are more just lifestyle changes to feel better and aren't really about calorie restriction. So, quick guide, balance your plate. Here's how to build a plate, real simple. Half your plate veggies, a palm-sized portion of protein, a fist-sized portion of carbs, and a thumb-sized portion of healthy fats. So this week's challenge is exactly that. One plate this week where half your plate is veggies, a palm-sized portion is protein, a fist-sized portion is healthy carbs, and a thumb-sized portion of healthy fats. Just send me an email what that plate was. You can send me a picture if you want. I'd love to see what you did, and just tell me how it made you feel. And that's the challenge for this week. And if you want to, you can drop a question in the comments, or you can share something you learned. And again, I've attached the entire presentation. It goes a deeper dive into all these different topics. I just wanted to give you some real quick tips and not waste your time. So I hope you guys have a great day, and please drop a comment or question in the comments. I'd love to, talk about more of this stuff. And that's it.